What's up, guys? Been a minute since I did anything in depth on a specific subject, especially for YouTube. I've been wanting to do this particular video for a long time, and it isn't necessarily, it is advanced stuff, but it's not necessarily going to improve your grow. More so, it's just going to improve a very important part of your cultivation skills, and that is understanding your mycelium on agar. And I'm going to start by just pointing out that despite what a lot of people say when it comes to plate work, the way your mycelium looks and grows on your plate has nothing to do with how your culture is going to perform. In fact, that's absurd. And anybody who's been doing this for long enough will know that the culture that is not visually appealing at all could very well be much better than the super rhizomorphic aggressive culture when it's on a plate and looks good, the one that you take the pictures for Instagram, generally a plate that does look good and that's growing really nice mycelium and that's really aggressive, I will say, is probably going to, as long as you have an isolate, right? So we've gone over what an isolate is, what a dikaryon is, right? What a monoculture is. Those are all the same thing. As long as you're dealing with good genetics and you have an isolate, it should perform well regardless of what it looks like on agar. Now, with that said, just because a culture or an isolate doesn't do well on agar or look good on agar, like I was just saying, it does not mean that that's not going to perform. In fact, if it's an isolate and it's been properly worked and the genetics are good and it doesn't look good, it still should perform well. It's literally 50-50 as far as my library goes. It's split 50-50. My ugly cultures do just as good as my healthy cultures. They all do good. I have probably 50% of my isolates will grow really pretty snowflake-like growth, and the other half of them, I just don't really bother to really stimulate that out of them because, for one, it's time consuming, and for two, there's no point because I already know that it's an isolate and I already know that it's going to perform. Why do we look for healthy growth and uniform growth? Well, the reason why we do that is because the more uniform your mycelium's growing, as long as your transfer's done properly, the more likely it is that you have an isolate. As long as you're not pulling an old isolate, say, out of the fridge after it's been sitting there for 6 months, and then you transfer it to a plate and expected everything to be uniform. It's got to wake up, And, there was a conversation, I'm not going to say any names, but the guy pulled an old Enigma culture in one of his videos, and he said, out of the fridge, he pulled it out, and he said, "Why is it sectoring?" And, it's like, man, it's got to wake up. I remember thinking that, and I even talked to him about it when he did an interview with me. I was like, yeah, man, it's got to wake up. It's when you have an isolate and you understand what an isolate is, it can be confusing seeing sectoring on your plate from an isolate because it's supposed to not have sectors, right? It's not supposed to have any barrage zone. But what you're seeing, say, when you transfer an isolation to a new plate or a new nutrient, right? So it's not used to it. And we're going to get into that right now as to why nutrients are important and how to keep your mycelium stimulated. But say you transfer it to a new nutrient and that particular isolate doesn't have the enzymes developed to break down and digest that nutrient yet. So parts of it might be figuring it out. It's kind of like, let's say, for example, you have a finger that has that is growing, say, a mole. Like you have moles on one side of your arm, and your other side of your arm doesn't have any moles. And I'm just using this as a random example off the top of my head. Regardless, I'm still the same person, right? I'm an individual, just like that isolates an individual. Bob Marley had cancer on his toe. Does that mean that his whole body has cancer? Well, eventually, right, say a disease will spread through the whole thing. But just like mycelium, when it's adapting to a new culture or it's waking up, parts of it have to wake up first, or parts of it are learning how to create those enzymes that are needed to digest that new nutrient. So some of it could be rhizo, some of it could be tematose, some of the plate might not even have any growth on it because that area is just slow and is taking time. But in the end, it should all end up somewhat uniform. I call this video, the art of Agar, because Agar truly is an art. To me, it has nothing to do with your cultivation skills, but people who are able to create a very aesthetic, beautiful plate consistently on Agar, I think that generally they're pretty good at cultivating, because it's something that you're going to practice and that takes a long time to get good at while you're learning to cultivate and do the exact same thing, which is perfect the craft, right? Oh, guys, check this out. Look at this. I got to share this because I just noticed this because this video, so I'm screen recording this, but check it out. There's a dog hair on those freaking plates. Sick. Anyway, we'll discard that. Yeah, what was I talking about? Maybe, one sec. I'll rewind that because I kind of got this planned out. This whole thing is going to be screen recorded, so I've got lots of videos, lots of pictures, lots of content that we can go over. The art of Agar. Agar is an art of its own, and if the amount of time that it takes for you and the amount of dedication that it takes to figure out how to perfect the art of Agar, as far as just presenting a pretty plate for Instagram or YouTube or wherever, so that you can enter it in the Battle of Agar, right? Everybody wants to take first place in the BOTA. That's a cool thing. And the people who are doing that, like I said, they've been working on the craft overall as far as hobby mycology goes, and they should probably be pretty good, because if they've spent that much time perfecting Agar, they obviously are crazy enough to not give up at perfecting the most difficult hobby in the world, in my opinion, and that is at-home cultivation of fungus, the way that we do it. And particularly the kinds that are fun and magic, right? They're a little bit more tricky than a lot of your gourmets and other things that are super domesticated for a much longer time than even the most popular species that we're cultivating have had time to be domesticated. It's a very, very challenging thing, and Agar is very challenging. Just learning how to operate in front of your flow hood so that you don't contaminate your Agar is very challenging for anybody who's learning. I don't care, and I've said this before, anybody who said that this was an easy hobby isn't growing these things anymore, because they've been humbled, and nobody who has been humbled the way these things will humble you time and time again is still cultivating if they think that it's easy. It's just not how it works, guys. That said, let's get into this, guys. So to start, let's just take a look at some of these plates. These are freshly poured plates. And guys, I want you to get a pen and paper and take notes. And you can always obviously go back and listen to this video. And just kind of listen to it as you're working out how you're going to do your recipe and your dyes, right? So guys, what you're looking at here as far as the color goes, and color is so cool, guys, because it gives it such a cool aesthetic, and it makes it so much more presentable when you're sending them in the mail, to friends or whoever it is, if you're vending, however it is you're doing it. The thing about color is that most of the time your mycelium doesn't like it. Your mycelium gets stressed out when it's on it, and it looks ugly, and it's undergoing a stress, and could possibly be damaging it, causing undesirable morphologies or traits, could be making it stronger, could be creating a mutation that's really freaking cool. But ideally, you don't want it to be reacting to the dye. So I'm going to tell you my secret, how I'm able to do it, because people always ask me, how do you get, especially particularly with red, right? Red is a color of dye that fungus just doesn't like. It's very toxic. And I'm going to get into exactly what it is I do so that I can do red dyes. And also, guys, my plates, you see them how they are. That yellow is not going to bleed in to, what color was that? Was that purple? I think it's yellow and purple. Yeah, that's orange and purple. They're not going to bleed into each other. And I'm going to tell you why. That's because I'm not using food coloring. Like the type of food coloring that you get at the store that you can just color any food with. It's very important, guys, that you listen to me right now if you're going to dye your plates. You do not ever use food coloring, okay? You're going to use what's called food gel coloring. You need to type that into Amazon exactly like that, food gel coloring. And it will advertise these little things. They look just like the food coloring little squirt things. They look just like it, except it doesn't say food coloring. Food, G-E-L, coloring. And the difference is this stuff is used for baking, for coloring, like, say, cupcakes, like pink cupcakes. It's not, it won't work as well, or probably wouldn't even work at all, really, if you were, like, dyeing your, I don't know what people use food coloring for, like Easter eggs and shit, right? Excuse the potty mouth, guys. You know me. Screw it, man. I'm going to say whatever I want, but if I offend you, I'm sorry. I hope that you can get over it and still gain something from my content. But you need the food gel coloring, and that's because it's not toxic, or at least not as toxic as the food coloring. Also, guys, the big trick is, so I could use food gel coloring and do a purple and an orange in my agar and pour 2 separate bottles like I did here. And it's not even, you're not even going to barely be able to see it unless you get what's called mica powder. And I would put mica powder in my agar as well, the color of mica powder that I'm using of the same color of the food gel coloring that I'm using. I'm going to use the same color of mica powder in that particular agar flask or jar, or whatever, your kombucha bottle. I use kombucha bottles. And that's going to allow both of those to work together to create that solid color. And what's cool about doing it this way is none of this is going to bleed through over time. If you just do food coloring, if I was to do purple and orange, within 3 or 4 days, it's all just going to kind of turn into an ugly brown. Okay, so this is ideal because it's going to allow you to get that awesome mycelium that you're looking for. And it's also not going to bleed through. It's going to consistently stay the same. The amount that I use is very important too. You don't want to overdo it. Obviously, you don't want to underdo it. Underdoing it's obviously going to be better than overdoing it though. But I'm going to tell you guys how I do it, okay? So you're going to use, per 500 milliliters, all right, guys? You're going to use 3/4 of a gram of the gel. And you're just going to squirt that into a spoon or whatever, and or whatever it is that you're using on your scale, and you're going to measure that, okay? So that's 3/4 of a gram. And then you're going to use a teaspoon of your mica powder. And make sure, guys, also, I've made this mistake before. I don't know if other people have encountered this problem, but I got some really cool looking colors that were of mica on Amazon, and they were fluorescent. But whatever it was that made them fluorescent was super toxic to the mycelium. And I did like 100 transfers that day. Finished the day. It took me hours, pouring and sweating and wrapping plates, doing transfers, and not a single piece of mycelium. Every single one of those transfers ended up taking on the color of the agar that it was transferred to, like the wedge, right? Because by the time you transfer it, it's going to be clear because your mycelium is actually eating all the nutrients inside of the agar, and it eats the coloring as well, and it digests it. It doesn't change the color of your mycelium, because your mycelium's crazy and just breaks it down and eats whatever's in the agar, right? It just probably looks at the gel as like dirt or something. That's what it thinks it is. But the clear piece that was transferred onto the new plates that were colored with the fluorescent stuff, they turned fluorescent, and they were the same color as well, and the mycelium just never grew. So never get fluorescent mica powder, okay? So that's key. So you're going to do a teaspoon of mica powder every 500 mils, and you're going to do 3/4 of a gram of the food gel coloring, and that's the perfect amount. Like I said, you're going to mix orange mica, so 1 teaspoon of orange mica powder and 3/4 of a gram of food gel coloring that's orange, and you do that in 1 bottle, and you pour that while it's hot. As soon as you get done pouring and you fill up your plate about, most of the way, you're going to have spots. Obviously, you don't want to fill the whole thing up. You want spots of the plate on the plate that are still transparent, that your agar hasn't overflowed, right? So that you can pour your purple into that, and then you are very careful with it, obviously, because it's still dry and you don't want them to splash into each other and get mixed up. Let them sit there till they dry, and you'll end up with something like this. Okay, and I'm going to get into the recipe, and I'm going to explain to you guys how to consistently have rhizomorphic, beautiful plates year-round, because if you understand how agar works or how mycelium works, you'll understand that you don't always have rhizomorphic growth coming off a culture, because it either gets full or it gets too hungry, and or it gets used to a nutrient and it's no longer excited and it gets bored. So you're not going to have to switch from high nutrient to low nutrient, and you're not going to have to switch your recipe using the technique that I'm going to show you. And to me, it's common sense. I'm the type of person, when I see an issue, I try to simplify things. If you guys follow me, you know that that's how I am. So I created an agar recipe that's neither high nutrient or low nutrient, and it's going to stay the same year round, because I'm going to show you how to keep your mycelium excited with the same recipe. Now there's a catch to this, okay? But let's just admire some of this dopeness real quick, because these are beautiful fucking plates. I love agar. I love doing transfers, man. I could do transfers all day and do art, and yeah, it's just my jam, man. It's agar is something that I didn't really get into until I started vending in 2023. I would always do K-cups. I mean, I was back in the day when before the ketchup cup things, on the shroomery, a few people got into using deli cups, right? You'd have to buy the deli cups. They were actually autoclavable a lot of the time. You get them at Costco. They were polypropylene. They were a little bit bigger than the K-cups, but they were quite a bit more expensive, but way cheaper than a Petri dish. I actually bought Petri dishes for my first time ever using agar. I don't remember what year that was, but it was many moons ago, guys. And I only did that once, and then I bought them again when I started vending, because people wanted plates. And before all that, man, I didn't care about my agar recipe. I understood that mycelium liked sugar, and whatever I had in my kitchen, man, there's times I was just like, had the most gooey, nasty agar that just looked bad, inside these poorly poured K-cups, and transfer the mic to it. And I knew that I had an isolate that was performing, so it didn't matter to me. It'd be maybe a few chunks of brown rice, or maybe some brown rice with a little bit of coffee, just anything that I knew mycelium liked, and I didn't care as long as I had that agar puck to inoculate my grain with. I was happy. So since 2023, when I first started vending that summer, I'm a perfectionist, and I get on Instagram and social media. This is back in the Wild West days when they allowed us to do this stuff and, post our pics all day. I saw some people had really, really nice plates, and I was following. So there was, before I started vending, I followed Basidium Equilibrium. I followed Doma Magic Myco, right? He had a few pages, and he was doing some cool stuff with chromatography and all that. And I talked to him a few times. We were kind of cool, He didn't really know that I was growing to the extent that I was, but always admired a lot of these guys. Basidium Equilibrium, Manna from Heaven followed him. I was following Mono Carry On My Wayward Son. Me and him were chatting it up before I ever vended. And then a few other guys who weren't on necessarily Instagram, but were, doing big things I was talking to. And I got on Instagram, though, and a kind of started following everybody trying to do it. And I was like, man, my plate game is not on. So I really, really stepped up my game. And I did it fairly quickly because I don't want to post a picture of a plate unless it's turning heads, you know? And nowadays, I think I've got some really nice plates. We're going to go through and look at what my plates consistently look like now since I figured out my recipe. And my recipe and the theory behind it just came from me observing what other people were doing, what people would tell me to do. I'd, always take with a grain of salt, take what I thought was useful, and leave out what I thought it could go without. And, and a lot of people gatekeeper give bad information on plates because they don't want you to learn. And that's silly, because if somebody's going to continue learning agar and working their isolations, and they want to have these pretty plates, they're going to figure it out either way, man. Why get in the way of people's growth, man? Help people. I just don't understand. There's so much hate in this community compared to how it was when I first started. You guys, it's sad because I do this for a living. A lot of people do this for a living. We're good people. We have families, and go around tattletelling on people's Instagrams, and ultimately it's because people like that are childish. They're immature, and they should probably eat some of these things, because what they don't understand is they're living in a state of fear, and it's counterproductive to ever being good for them. And I keep saying this, as long as they're not competing with themselves and they're competing with the people that they're trying to remove because they're afraid of, as long as they're doing that, they're going to keep on losing to themselves, because they don't realize that the one that's beating them is them. And the people who are winning, we're competing with ourselves, and we're not even paying attention to what these people are actually doing as far as how they're performing. The only reason we know who they are or what they're doing at all is because they're jealous haters, and we have to listen to it all the time. So point is, guys, if you have a good agar recipe, share it with your homie. Okay? That's all I'm trying to say. Go ahead and snitch. We'll just keep on making new Instagram shit. I think I'm on 10.0. So that's like in less than a year. Yeah, since September of last year, I'm on my 10th Instagram. So that's pretty cool. And I'd never had it taken down until then. And it's sad because the moment that I got it taken down was the moment I got into an argument with somebody who was a very big name in the community, and now they don't even exist on social media anymore. So it's kind of ironic. They were probably the biggest name in the underground myco community. A lot of you probably know who I'm talking about, but the moment that we publicly went at each other's throats on social media, my Instagram went down like 20 minutes after that. And ever since then, whenever I post a picture of a fruit, it gets taken down again. So it's bullshit. I'm on my 10th one, whatever. Instagram was probably, my bread and butter besides spore swaps as far as orders go, because I had like 6,000 followers on there, and it was growing really fast. It was growing really fast because High Times had just featured me, and that's pretty fucking cool. And it's sad because I worked really hard to get to that point, and whatever, I found other ways to survive, and I'm still doing well. And everything always balances itself out in the end. So I shouldn't complain too much about that right now. I don't even know how I got to that, but I got to it, and now we're ending it. So we went over what an isolation is, why, or is it important to look a certain way on agar, and we went over food gel coloring and mica powder, the do's and the don'ts, okay? So I'm also going to say you do not need to spend a lot of money, guys, to start pouring plates. I get disposable plates on Amazon. They're polystyrene, I believe is what they are. So, really hot water will melt these things. They're made for one-time use, though I do know how to reuse polystyrene plates very, very easily if you're ever in a bind and need plates. And you can't get any fresh ones. I wouldn't recommend selling anything or sending anybody anything that's on a used plate that has razor marks along the bottom, or they lose their shine after you've grown a culture in them. But so let's say you have plates that are empty, or they have old cultures that you can just throw away and you feel bad because you're wasting plastic. Well, all you have to do is take hot water and soap and rinse that thing out, go in front of your flow hood, and then give a spritz of hydrogen peroxide in the plate so that it's covering it all. Like hold your spray bottle back a good, 6 inches or whatever, spray into it so it covers all of it. Turn the lid upside down, do the same thing with that, put it on there, let it sit 5 minutes. You can pour your agar directly into that. That hydrogen peroxide has eaten and killed any bacteria that could contaminate, or any mold that could contaminate your agar after you pour it. And also, the hydrogen peroxide will still exist within that agar and help fight contaminants that you may transfer from another wedge. Hydrogen peroxide is my best friend. That shit is bomb. I love it. I drink it every day by the gallon. My mycelium drinks it every day by the gallon, and that's why we're so strong. Okay, so drink hydrogen peroxide. That's point number 4. We haven't gotten to that yet. Anyway, so we're going to not skip to number 4. We're going to go to number 3, I believe, and that is you don't need to spend money, guys. You can use a kombucha bottle, those glass ones that are, they're brown and they're cool shaped bottles. You should always save those glass bottles anyways, because you can fill them up with water in case of an emergency. I've got so many. My girl, she drinks so much kombucha, and I tell her, you should grow a freaking SCOBY and grow your own. Like, we grow mushrooms. That's what we do. Why are we buying so much kombucha? But I'm telling you guys, it really doesn't matter. You don't need a lot of them, because these bottles will last way longer than a lab grade flask. Either with the blue cap or the red cap or the orange cap, it doesn't matter. Your kombucha bottles are a million times more durable when it comes to being pressure cooked, holding pressure, not allowing leaks, and they're just as easy to pour out of, if not easier, because they have a smaller mouth. That's what I use. I've bought the big lab grade bottles several times. They always end up messing up. When you're spending money on one of those, if you're buying one, make sure you buy an expensive one, because the ones that are, if you're getting 1,000-liter bottle for under $30, you're fucking up, because I promise you, if you're using that a lot, if you're consistently pouring agar once or twice a week, probably guaranteed within a year to, a year and a half, one of these times you're going to open up that pressure cooker, you're going to pull it out, and it might just explode in your hand, or you're going to open the pressure cooker and it's already exploded. That glass bottle explodes. I've seen them explode a few times, even spending money on them, getting nice ones. They just, I don't know what it is. It's the Brusselite, or however you say it. It's that glass, But something about the dark, like the ones that the kombucha bottles come in, the stuff that, they'd put like a super hoppy beer in, that dark glass, whatever. It's just, I don't know if it's the glass, if it's the color of the glass or whatever. It's just better. So use a kombucha bottle. If I find out you guys are spending money on anything from Amazon, I'm going to be freaking PO'd, because I don't want you getting burned, and I don't want anybody around you getting damaged. So if you do burn somebody, I'm not liable. I warned you. Do not use a professional bottle. Use a kombucha bottle. And if you burn somebody using a kombucha bottle, you can always sue the hippies who are selling you kombucha. And that's a win-win for everybody. So make sure you have money saved for a lawyer. Okay, that's all I'm saying, because if you burn somebody, you want to be able to sue the people who made you burn them. And that's not me. So, just kidding, guys. Sometimes I think I'm funny and I'm not, but at least I laugh at myself, so that's good. Let's talk about ingredients that are used for agar. So this is the most important part of this whole entire discussion, and that is the recipe. So, like I said earlier, you're either going to be switching from a high newt to a low newt to a medium newt, and then switching your ingredients all around in the meantime if you want to have consistently good looking plates. Okay, no you don't, because I'm going to show you how I do it, and I'm going to explain it in detail as to why. One sec. I'm going to explain as to why people generally use the technique of switching everything around pretty consistently to keep your mycelium looking good. And the reason why they do that, so your mycelium when it's on a high nutrient plate, right? A lot of times, well, the reason why it likes that high nutrient plate is going to be because it was just coming off of a low nutrient plate. Okay? The reason why it's coming from a low, you're taking that transfer from a low nutrient plate to a high nutrient plate is because your mycelium is now hungry, and you're going to transfer it to a high nutrient plate so that it has that food bioavailable to it and it's hungry. But also what's going to stimulate it is, say that you were using LME as your main ingredient in your plate. You've now switched to sorghum from LME. So now it's like excited. Oh man, I'm hungry and this is something new, right? And it's important, guys, that it knows what sorghum is. So that, say, 3 transfers before that, 4 or 5 transfers before that, you had sorghum in your recipe, and it has the enzymes needed. It needs to be able to have the enzymes to break it down. So basically your mycelium remembers how to digest sorghum now. So it just came from a low nutrient plate. It got hungry, right? So you transfer it to a high nutrient plate with a new nutrient. Not necessarily new, it's something that it knows that it likes, and it's going to eat up right away. And so now your plate goes rhizomorphic and it looks beautiful. Boom, picture for the gram. Everybody likes it. Woo, you're a freaking hero. Dude has the best plates. Yeah, Boda this year. Yeah, hell yeah, we're going to win it. Anyways, that's what happens. And then what happens after that is, generally you'll use that recipe, that high nutrient with the sorghum now, for 2 transfers, maybe 3 transfers. Once you start to see it slow down, the growth slow down, you're going to know that, number one, the mycelium's getting full and it doesn't need to grow at such a fast rate and act so aggressive, because it's like, I can kind of slow down and I need to kind of slow down and digest this stuff. And also it's getting bored of sorghum. So what do? You're going to put it on a low nutrient plate, and you're probably going to switch the recipe. So you're going to go to PDA instead of sorghum. And keep in mind that a few transfers before that, a few plates before that, it was on PDA because it needs to remember how to produce the enzymes to digest PDA. If it hasn't ever had PDA, or it's been a long time, it will forget how to produce those enzymes, and it will still look like shit on the plate until your next transfer. Sometimes it takes 2 transfers for it to really figure out how it's going to create these enzymes to digest it. And so now you're just having ugly plates. You don't want to send those to anybody. It's kind of a waste of space because you're probably just going to let them sit in your fridge for too long. Maybe you use those ones to inoculate with. Whatever it be, you're not getting the growth that you want, right? So make sure that what nutrients you have always have been in the rotation, or if you switch something that it's never had or it's been a long time, expect it to take a while to figure out how to look good again. Okay. But the whole point of what I'm getting to tonight is you don't have to mess around with that confusing shit. Okay. So it was what happens generally. You put it to PDA, right? So, number one, now it's on a low nutrient, so it's going to get hungry. Because it just got full, it got slow, it got bored, and it got stuffed, right? It's like, I can't move and I'm bored. Now it's like, fuck, I'm hungry and now I'm excited. So now you're on a low nutrient plate and it's doing good. Okay. So that's how people generally make their plates or their mycelium look good on their agar. I'm going to explain something to you guys. Look at these gorgeous plates. Okay. This is an old school photo. I was just scrolling through my gangster ass shit, and that's what I found. Was one of them, but that's not, what is that? That's like a brain, guys. It's like a brain. That's cool. That's still water. Here's some more plates. I know I don't have enough storage. I have so much shit. I got to get a SD card because I'm literally not going to pay Google that much. I've upgraded my Google account several times, and I was kind of upset at myself for paying Google $3 a month for however much they were giving me, which was a lot of storage, right? Now they're telling me $11.99 because I have so much storage. I'm like, I'm not fucking paying that. I'm not doing it. Anyways, These are beautiful plates. Look at that orange and yellow, guys. That's the freaking gorgeous shit you want. Look at that growth. Okay, look at that cuttlefish. Cut. And the guys, cuttlefish is the craziest mycelium. If you guys don't know what cuttlefish is, it was an isolation that I've worked to F5 Chicka at Spore Exchange down in Australia. He's got spores for an F6 right now. Super excited to see what he comes up with. If you guys know anything about BDG, hit me up about the Discord. The new Discord's up. BDG, we're the big dick gang, because we grow big old freaking honkers. And we don't take shit from anybody. And we got the best shit in the world right now. Changing the game, literally, with our techniques and our discoveries and the way that we're actually breeding and, doing. It's a really big fucking deal, actually. And I'm really proud of everybody who's been involved over the last, 2-3 years. It's grown into quite the movement. So it's pretty cool. But he's working on the F6 because the cuttlefish is just difficult to get spores from, especially if you want the true cuttlefish pheno, because it doesn't really drop spores. And taking it to the next generation, you want to make sure you get spores from the right fruit. But this mycelium, guys, that cuttlefish is producing, it's literally insane. How does it do that? Can somebody help me out and explain to me what is going on here? And it's every time. And these are calm cuttlefish plates, guys. These are calm. So keep that in mind. Okay. So what do we have here? This is an isolate, guys. A lot of people would say, oh, well, maybe there's contamination right here. No, that's not contamination. Those are bubbles in the agar, and it kind of caused the mycelium to get stuck, but it made a really cool little pattern, huh? Kind of looks snowflakey. Even if this is an isolation, and let's say these weren't here causing that, you can get growth that looks like that, but look at the shape of the wedge that's on there. It's obviously going to grow at different rates coming off of that. I like cutting my slices like that. I think they look cool generally. They're still really uniform. And they're really easy to do transfers when you're taking transfers from a single plate. Anyways, back to the goddamn recipe that I use, okay? One sec. I'm going to pause for just a sec. You guys won't even know that I left. One sec. Okay, guys, I'm back after 2 days. Just kidding. That was like 2 seconds. Quit telling my viewers that I'm not conforming to your bullshit, man. Google should pay us. Literally, they steal our data and they freaking, yeah, it's whack. Anyways, guys, I wrote this down for you. Okay, I wrote it down for us to share. So check it out. This is my agar recipe, and there's, like I said, there's a catch to everything that I was saying about the switching of the nutrients. When I say that you can use the same ones year round, I meant it, but there's a catch. That's what I meant. So remember I said that because I'm not going to let you put words in my big fucking mouth, okay? So check it out. We're going to use 500 mils of water. If you guys are using the kombucha bottle, I think they're like 490, maybe they're 470. Don't think too hard about this shit. Whether it's a little bit over, it's a little bit under, you're not going to be able to tell a difference, guys. And what I suggest, when you get your agar, you just go to Amazon and you get the one that's the most affordable. A lot of times that is Telephone brand. That's my preferred brand. I don't know why. I just started using that stuff years ago when I would buy it at the Asian market before Amazon was even really popping, okay? So what you're going to do, 500 mils of water, that's 2 cups, guys. Okay? And you're going to get 9 grams of agar. You're going to get a scale that can measure to the 100th. That means 0.00, because you're going to need a scale that weighs down to the 100th. Okay? So listen to me when I say it. Scale that weighs down to 0.00 grams. And you can get one for $10 more, and it's probably like $25 that weighs all the way down to the 0.000, and that's the 1,000th. I hope I'm right about that. I don't know. I never was good at school or anything in my life, so I might be wrong. It might be the 10th or the 9th or the millionth. Who cares, right? 0.00. You need at least that. If you guys are doing things like that 2C, what's it called? What's the letter? Is it D? No, you guys know it's B, right? So if you're doing stuff like that, you want to be able to measure it all the way down because it's such a small amount that you need to be able to measure. But if you're just doing this, 0.00 is fine, because the one thing that you need to be able to measure down to 0.0 is the 0.05 grams of instant coffee. We haven't got there yet. You're going to get the cheap agar on Amazon, the stuff that's going to overnight it. It'll say Amazon's Choice, you're going to click on that one. It's going to give you 12 ounces, 6 ounces of Agar for like $9. Boom. It's got several brands that are all the exact fucking same. Don't buy it from a lab. It does not make a difference, at least for me, because all of my plates are bomb. I'm not just saying that to be arrogant. It's not that hard to do it the way that I'm doing it, is my point, guys. So 9 grams of Agar is what you're going to weigh out, and you put in your 500 ml bottle of that came from a kombucha bottle, your spent kombucha bottle, right? You don't want any liquid in it right now. It needs to be empty, and it needs to be cleaned out. And also the little thing that the lid snaps off of, you know, whenever you buy a soda pop or whatever, in a plastic bottle, a glass bottle, it has that little ring, that little thing that it unclips from. Take that thing off, because you don't want that there when you're pouring plates, catching contaminants and fucking everything up. So just clip that thing off so it's just the lid that screws on. You don't got that little thing hanging around there chilling like, oh, what do I do? Okay. So 9 grams of Agar, 6.5 grams of LME. What is LME? That's light malt extract. Where do you get it? So you can get it for like a couple bucks. Like you can get like, if you're just, you know, if you're me, I literally, so over the last 3 years, babe, how much did we go through? Like how many pound bags? We went through pounds of this shit. And that's crazy because that's a lot of plates. That's a lot of Agar to be poured. I mean, generally you get like a 6 ounce bag that should last somebody who's growing quite a bit and doing quite a bit of plate work well over a year, just one bag. We went through like 10 of those things, and just had to re-up from the brewing store. Your local brewing store is where you buy them, guys. If you want to buy a bunch at a time, go ahead. If you're vending, I suggest you do. You probably get it a little bit cheaper if you ever drink beers with your homie who runs the brewing store. Go ahead and put 6.5 grams of LME. And that's not the dark stuff. I've never used the dark stuff. I've heard people say, everybody's always talking about their Agar recipes, right? And there's a lot that goes on in it. I know what works for me. Some people prefer the darker stuff. I like the light stuff aesthetically because it allows my Agar to be clear and it doesn't throw off the bright colors of my gels and my gel coloring and my mica powder when it's poured. So I go with the LME, the light malt extract, okay? And then I'm going to go with, this is important, guys, brewer's yeast. Same thing, get on Amazon, way cheap. I do 0.3 grams of brewer's yeast, exactly, 0.3 grams, okay? And this is key with brewer's yeast and your peptone. And that's veg peptone, guys. It's going to say soya peptone. It's $10, and you'll get a little bottle of it. You don't need to go crazy on your peptone. They've got all different types of peptones. Some of them are crazy expensive. All you need is the veg stuff, guys. It comes from soy. These two are both bacteriological, meaning that they come from bacteria, right? It's very important, I think, that you have at least one of these in your arsenal when you're doing Agar, just because that the yeast and the peptone really give it that oomph. And not to say that you can't do it without it, because you can, but consistently it's gonna give you better results. Also, I think that even if you do have a plate that looks good without it, it could look better with it, okay? Normally what I've seen is people will usually, for a recipe like mine, do about 1 gram of yeast. Not many people use peptone, or that if they use peptone, they do about 1 gram of peptone. I cut it back and use both of them, because my theory behind this is the more that you got going on, the more enzymes your mycelium's able to produce. So just the overall, the more nutrients that you have on your plate for your Agar to understand how to digest, the better off it's going to be in any given circumstance, okay? Also, peptone's amazing for your mycelium. Look it up. There's studies. I'm not going to get into that. That's a whole other conversation. Yeast is amazing for your mycelium. Do your guys' research. And that's just overall health in the long run too. It does amazing thing. There's other stuff. What's it called? People use it for the goddamn drippy corn. It's the erythritol. I can never say the name, and I don't use it, because I don't care that much about it, because I have another technique that I use that works the same as the drippy corn. The erythritol, obviously, a lot of people say that it gives you better yields, and I believe that it does, because the people who tell me this are people I really trust and admire and respect as cultivators. But at the same time, I don't know if it would make a difference in my, like, I don't know, man. I, just use peptone and yeast for now. Okay, guys, don't worry about the erythritol, because I'm going to show you how I get my agar or LC at the end of the day when you inoculate your grain, how to make it colonize quickly like the drippy corn does. Okay. So 0.3 grams of yeast, 0.3 grams of peptone, the veg stuff. And then I'm going to go half a gram of honey, guys. Just get the cheap stuff, get the organic stuff that your neighbor, said that his bees ate lilacs, and so it smells like lilacs and bee poop, right? And you eat it, and it's just like, whatever. Use honey. Use half a gram of honey. It's important that you do, right? And like I said, I have a lot of recipes. Most people who are using honey aren't going to use agave syrup. I'm using both. And instead of using 2 grams of honey or a gram of honey or 2 grams of agave or a gram of agave, I'm using half a gram of each. Okay. And the reason why I say 2 grams, because a lot of people like to keep their nutrients high, and those are the plates that look really good. I don't let mine. This is a medium nutrient plate. I like to keep it balanced the whole time. I don't want it to get full or get hungry. I want it to be happy the whole time. I want to keep it consistently excited without overfeeding it or underfeeding it. Okay. And like I said, keeping it excited by switching nutrients, right? But we're not changing our recipe, but there's a catch. Okay. So anyways, half a gram of honey, half a gram of agave. Okay. And then you're going to do 0.05 grams of instant coffee, not spent coffee grounds. Okay. Not coffee at all. It's the dry stuff that looks like pebbles. It comes in the little Folger bottle, and you just pour it in the bottom of your coffee cup. You can just pour cold water in it or hot water in it, and it turns into instant coffee. Literally, they've taken coffee, brewed it, and then they heat it up to a certain temperature to where it's not going to burn it, but it'll evaporate off the water, and what's left is this dusty coffee residue that they scrape into a plastic bottle, and they ship it to Kroger or Smith's or your local freaking grocery store, and you buy it and you drink it and you get stimulated, okay? Because it's caffeine, and that's good shit, and you want to drink it every day, because if you don't, you're not going to get headaches when you quit. And who doesn't like headaches? Just kidding. Drink caffeine, guys, because coffee is good for the soul. You want coffee because it's soul food, okay? When we die, that's what we're eating. It's coffee. So you want your body to be able to produce the enzymes needed to digest all the coffee that we're going to be eating when we die. So coffee, 0.05, not 0.5. That's 0.05. Now, guys, before I get into the catch, I'm going to finish the recipe overall. Okay, so 1 tablespoon of hydrated grain, and the hydrated grain is the grain that you're going to be inoculating. And the reason why you put a tablespoon per 500 milliliters of water and this agar recipe of hydrated grain is because when you put your LC or your plate, aka agar, to grain, and if it doesn't have grain, or if it doesn't have that grain in its recipe, or if it hasn't eaten grain recently, like I said, it needs to have at least eaten something when you transfer it to a new nutrient. It's going to take a long time to figure out how to create the enzymes that are needed to digest that new nutrient. So what do? I always have hydrated popcorn in mind, because I love popcorn. If you guys know anything about me or bought kits or seen what I inoculate and what I like to work with, I love popcorn aesthetically, and because it works for me, because it's the first grain I ever figured out how to prep, and I do it very quickly. And I say the best grain is the one that you know how to prepare properly, and that's usually the first grain that you learn, right? So there's never a point in switching grains, guys. I'm warning you right now. Even if I was to switch right now, I'd encounter problems. There's always a learning curve whenever you change the slightest thing in this hobby. Stick to what you know and to what works. If you really want to switch up what you're doing, because you think it's going to be better, and you're willing to take a loss because you probably are going to miss something that you didn't think was going to happen that's going to end up screwing you, go ahead and switch your tech up and try it, and then continue to perfect it. Most people who are good at doing this do that and have done that at some point, probably several times in their in the time that they've been working on their hobby here. Okay. Not saying not to switch things up, because you can definitely switch things up and be better. Is what I'm saying is, when you switch things up, prepare for everything to go wrong and prepare to be humbled by the process and the cycle of life that you're helping along inside your little plastic bag or your tub. Okay. So I use popcorn. That's it. Every time I've ever switched grains, I think that I got it. I'm like, damn, this was an easy prep. No. There's always something you're going to miss, and you're always going to mess up, and it's going to put you at least a month behind. And that's only if you were prepared with backups in case you fucked up. Okay, so that said, tablespoon of popcorn is what I do. The moment that I put my agar to popcorn, it grows super fast, and it literally, sometimes, people could take 3 weeks to a month to colonize a 5-pound bag. I'm colonizing them, when I use agar, literally in a week or under. The majority of the time I inoculated with LC just because I didn't want to do so much agar. Then I realized I'm just going to start doing all my LC tests on K-cups and using those Queen LC test cups to inoculate my grain. And that was the biggest deal, because I hadn't even done LC before, guys. Like I said, I had never worked on agar before I started vending. I never did LC. I didn't use any of it. I used agar to inoculate grain jars that I then used that grain to slurry. And I will get into that. I'm going to show you guys my tech that I created. It's called Slurricane. That's how I used to inoculate before I was vending, because I was a commercial bulk grower and I would inoculate hundreds of pounds of grains at a time. And it was the easiest, cleanest, fastest way to do that. The problem with using my Slurricane tech to inoculate grain now is that I have so many strains going at once that it would just be such a pain in the ass and not worth it. If you're doing 1 strain or 2 strains and you're doing big runs, definitely I'm going to have to show you guys the Slurricane, because you can have infinite mycelium and inoculate infinite grain instantly using this tech. So LC was a learning curve for me. Switched from LC back. So I knew before I did Slurricane, I was using agar to inoculate. So I know how to inoculate with agar, definitely, but I didn't care about the recipe, right? All I cared about is that I had an isolate growing. Putting a tablespoon of hydrated grain in the bottom of my LC is also something that I would do, and that I still do. I assume that a lot of people use popcorn, so the LC, if you've ever bought one from me, definitely has the mycelium in that LC have the enzymes necessary to digest your popcorn, and probably other grains too, because a lot of the grains are going to produce a lot of the same exact nutrients as far as the sugars go, and the proteins. And I think that it does matter what grain you use in your agar and your LC, if that's the grain you're inoculating. But I don't think that using, say, popcorn in your agar and then putting it on Milo, I do think that it's still definitely going to speed up your time as far as colonization goes. So there you have it. As far as that's why I'm using a tablespoon of hydrated grain. Now, guys, here's the catch that I was talking about. You guys ready? You guys ready for the catch? I do switch up my recipe, okay? But only by 1 ingredient every 2 pours. And what do I mean by 2 pours? Let's say I'm pouring 200 plates, and that's literally like, I think that I was going through 100 plates a week at my busiest point. So 200 plates every 2 weeks. I buy a big box of like 300, 400 plates. I don't remember, on Amazon. I don't remember how many are actually in it. It's a few hundred. Let's say I do 100 plates. I sit down on Monday and I do 100 plates, and I'm expecting myself to transfer and use all of those by the time the week's done. For pour 1 on that Monday, I'm going to use honey and agave. And then the next Monday, I'm going to use honey and agave. What just happened, guys? So the 0.05 grams of coffee sat out. It was not in the recipe. Okay. And then the following Monday after that, that's pour 3. I'm going to do agave and coffee. Okay. That's for 3 and 4, the 2 following Mondays. And for 5 and 6, what do I do? Coffee and honey. So for 3 and 4, what sat out? Honey was not involved. For 5 and 6, coffee and honey were there, but agave wasn't involved. And why do I do that, guys? Because your mycelium, now for 2 pours, it's grown out, right? It hasn't gotten hungry. and it hasn't gotten full, you've got all of these different things in there to keep it fairly happy, right? But these super advanced nutrients, these things like this, guys, there's so many little macro, like in coffee alone, there's hundreds. I think, no, there's over 100 beneficial nutrients, both essential and non-essential, in coffee that is beneficial and is good for your mycelium, right? Over 100 nutrients alone, micronutrients. We're talking about different minerals, different amino acids, different types of sugars, all sorts of different shit that is in coffee alone that's always going to be something that your mycelium really likes unless it gets bored with it. So for the 2 weeks that it sat out, my mycelium still remembers it's probably starting to crave coffee, right? And so when I switch it and I make that transfer, I didn't have to lower my nutrients or up my nutrients because it's not full, nor is it hungry, and it's not bored because it just got rid of honey and now it has coffee again, its favorite thing. And then I'm going to do that for 2 pours with agave, right? And then what happens? It probably starts to get sick of agave. So within 2, and agave has tons of beneficial micronutrients and macronutrients that are different from other macronutrients. The sugars, that are in the carbohydrates that are in agave are going to be different from the ones that are in honey, and the fats are going to be different, vice versa. So your mycelium notices these changes, and it's going to get excited when it hasn't had one in a couple of weeks, and it's always going to give you that dank freaking growth, guys. And that's what we want. We want freaking dank. I did that wrong. Hang on. D-A-N. Yeah. And don't do that. Okay. K. We want dank growth. So make sure that your growth is dank by keeping it switched up. And this is exactly how I do it, guys. I switch it up every 2 pours. And this is what I consistently get, is beautiful growth that's always happy. It's always happy to eat. It's never sad because it's not eating. And it's always super, super excited when it gets a new treat, right? That it knows that it loves and it remembers. Look at this, guys. This is how it's done. This is how we freaking do it, okay? This is why we do this shit, all right? I mean, dude, what the hell just happened there? And I mean, guys, you guys want good looking plates. Like I said, you can use, you can color your plates without compromising it noticeably. Okay. Obviously, make sure you guys get a diamond plate, a little top to go over your table and your workspace in front of your hood to give you that cold, clean aesthetic. Okay. Because you eat with your eyes first, guys. When you walk into Burger King, and if it's, the walls are like slime green color with food on it, and it looks old and dirty, even though they're making good burgers back there, you ate with your eyes first. You don't want it anymore. So make sure your presentation is correct. I mean, look how dirty this diamond plate is. Just look how nasty that shit is. But guess what? Because it's diamond plate, it looks good when you're not looking for the shit. It's cold and clean. Check that out. There's some grain in the Agar because it was from the bottom of the plate, or the bottom of the kombucha bottle. So, I mean, I'm sure that I was like shaking it hard and grain fell in there. And then you post a picture on the Agar porn little thing that they got on Reddit, right? And people are like, what is that? It's contaminated. And you're like, no, it's not. And they're like, fucking nail him to the cross. And I'm like, do not martyr me for not contaminating my plates. I'm not Jesus. Don't treat me like it. Anyways. I mean, I'm not Christian, but I don't even know where I was getting with that. All I'm saying is sometimes people see something that's different and there's something they don't understand and they like to nail you to a cross. And I'm getting about sick of it. If you guys got a problem, you can come to my house and say it to my face, and we can shake hands about it, okay? Anyways, so this is another important part of doing and making queen plates that you can post on the gram so that you get all the attention, okay? Because everybody needs attention on social media. It's a part of what makes you human, let's be real. Make sure that your blade, scalpel blade, is not bent from being heated 5 million times over the course of probably a year, and you change that fucker out before you make a pretty transfer, because if you don't, it will give you uneven lines like you're seeing, and you're just going to butcher a perfectly good plate. But I mean, I don't give a shit because I'm making a stack of these right now. This is some cuttlefish, and literally every week I make a big old stack of them, and one of those plates is sacrificed for new transfers for the next week. Okay? And if I feel like I was really careful with the plate, not like this one, and this one's definitely getting thrown away because I'm not going to use all this, but I'm definitely not putting that to grain the way that I'm handling it. Generally, guys, if you guys have a plate that you've done a bunch of transfers from and that you've worked on a lot of times it's not even going to show the contamination until your mycelium starts to die, because any contamination is landed on mycelium, and we all know that contamination doesn't eat your mycelium until your mycelium's old and tired or dying. Okay, so like I was saying earlier, I cut in that diagonal fashion, and then I cut. So I cut down and then I cut across in that diagonal fashion. I love doing my transfers this way. I've noticed that everybody else, since I posted a video about a year ago of me doing this to a Tool song, I couldn't find that video. It was better I had a straight blade, right? The blade was straight at least, and it looked better. Ever since I did that, everybody does it now. And you know what? I love it because it's inspiring to know that people like a diagonally shaped rectangular thing with their psychedelic mycelium. Okay? Because it looks cool, and that's probably why we're doing this thing in the first place. Because we like shit when it looks cooler than it actually is. Like when you're tripping balls, right? And you're looking at like the door, and you're like, whoa, that's a fucking door, man. Right? That's how we want our transfers to be. Gob it down. See, I did a big square one. I love the big chunkers. I always like to take a couple like big squares sometimes. Try to keep them more uniform, so make sure your blade is straight and new, unlike with the wonky piece of shit that I'm using in this video, embarrassing myself. Literally, I shouldn't have showed you guys the hack job I did to that fucking poor cuttlefish plate. I should have not used that plate as an example, because as you see the discoloration on the plate, you probably think that's contamination. Nope, that's not contamination, guys. That's just because cuttlefish is so rhizomorphic that once it grows out the plate that it's on, that aerial mycelium gets dry and it bruises and it turns blue because it's also really freaking potent. Okay. I bet that you could eat that plate and catch a buzz. What do you? I bet that you probably could. Maybe. I don't know. I've never done anything like that. I'm not that stupid. But if I was going to, I bet that it would. So go ahead and make your slanted rectangular little shapes and do your transfers, guys. And it's really important that you don't move any of the mycelium or the agar that you're transferring. You don't botch it up too much. You keep it nice and clean with your cuts. You make sure that when you're transferring it and setting it down, that you develop your technique to where you're just gently laying it how I am. I kind of push through all the way with the scalpel, and it goes into the agar I'm transferring it to. But that allows it to slice through the transfer, move through the plate seamlessly, and I'm able to pull it out. Or, let me just pause that. I don't know where I was going with that, guys. It allows you to not mess up the transfer piece, because if you do that, it just doesn't end up growing as uniform. You want it to not move around. If you have to move it around too much to get it in the center, the agar is actually grown all the way through. The agar isn't just growing across, or the mycelium isn't just growing across the surface of your agar, guys, even though it looks like that. It's literally going into the agar from the moment that it starts growing, and it's eating the whole thing as it grows out, seemingly only on the top. Okay. So if you have a little piece bump, the mycelium from the top of your transfer doesn't even need to touch the spot that it was bumped on. If you move it back, there's a good chance you're going to get a little satellite colony of mycelium growing from over there too. They're going to collide with the other transfer that you've moved to the middle, and it just kind of creates ugliness, ununiformity, and I like to use. I remember when I first posted this plate like a year ago on my old Instagram. I was looking at this as I posted it. Did you see a little freaking piece came off somewhere? I don't know if that was. I messed up. Hang on. Let me go back. Let's see. So, I don't know if this little piece was a chunk from the plate that it was transferred to, or if it came from one of these wedges that were transferred with the puncher. Okay. Doesn't matter though, because it's what I said when I posted this. If you try to make everything perfect, you'll drive yourself crazy. So, that right there makes this imperfect. You can see that. So try to be perfect and drive yourself crazy, please. Because if you had a beautiful plate like this and you put all that effort and focus into doing those perfect 3 dots without moving them, and somehow this happened, you're going to pull your own hair out, man. You're not going to be happy for at least a week. And every time, I'm not deleting this picture. This picture still goes on Instagram, okay? Because it's so good, but it's not perfect, and it goddamn could have been, okay? If you guys aren't doing it perfect, you're not doing it right, and you should not be proud. I'm actually just kidding, guys. I'm kind of just in a goofy mood talking about this stuff. I don't know how to take myself seriously, and I don't believe a word that comes out of my mouth, so I don't know why the hell I don't act crazy and do the things that I do and talk about the shit that makes me pull out my hair like this thing, right? I'm just sitting here looking at it, driving myself. Anyways, guys, the post said, if you try to make everything perfect, you'll go crazy. And people took it as, yeah, man, way to let go of shit, Moon. I'm like, that's not what I said. I didn't specify anything. I just said, what happens if you try to make everything perfect? Because shit like this will always happen to make you crazy. Anyways, enough talking about that specific post. I love this plate. I'm not ever going to delete it because it's so damn good. But I'm happy that we can talk about what it actually means to me a year later. Okay. Also, I'd like to point out, you can get these little work things, these little things. They have little, if you look at the picture that I'm using as the picture that you click on when you see my YouTube video, if you look at what all the LC, they're in a little cubby drawer. That's what it is. It's a cubby, guys. You can get these on Amazon, and they're super sweet. And on the side of them, there's a little thing that folds out that you can place your cellular device. Fits perfectly. And there's a little hole on the bottom of it for your charger to connect to the wire thing that goes into the wall that connects to it. Okay, the thing that goes into the bottom of your phone with electricity and makes it work. So that's pretty cool. And it has stars, and it I'd love to show you guys some cool pictures of some fruits. Let me see something. So, what is it? What's my Instagram? I don't even know my Instagram. So, this is Yadadanuma. Oh, Moon Daddy. Right, that's me. Doom Natty. So, this is my Instagram, Doom_Natty. If you guys are ever interested in checking out my grows and you want to see my portfolio, because I used to have it to where I could just post fruits on my Instagram. People would stitch on me. The only way I get by is doing stuff like this, because this is just a rock, right? And so IG's robot, after you snitch on me, can't tell that I'm doing anything wrong. Like these are more rocks. I love that shit. You guys like that, right? Yeah. Go to my Instagram, follow my IG, ask me for my Discord, hit me up on Insta. Everybody always messages me on YouTube, and it's like, hey man, how do I get a hold of you? It's like, Braz, hit me up on Signal, go to Instagram, message me on IG or on Reddit, I'm Moon Daddy _ Myco on Reddit. So Moon Daddy _ Myco on Reddit. Doom _ Natty on Instagram. And see, I can only post stuff that looks like rocks because people hate. There's some art. We do art. And there it is. That son of a bitch. So this isn't the one where I talked about the perfection thing, guys. The original one. You know what I'm saying? So guys, hit me up for the Discord. Make sure you're doing queen transfers. Make sure you use the proper stuff to make your plates colorful. And make sure you're tripping balls when you listen to Tool, always. If you guys ain't doing it like this, and if your guys' plates don't go canopies, god damn it, you're not listening to me. It's not ready for grain if you can't grow a canopy on your plate. Check it out. You guys know what Indian Graveyard is? Indian Graveyard is a Shakti flower mutation. Is a Shakti ghost spiral flower mutation that was originally cloned from this mess. This was the first clone that was grown. Do you believe that? Indian Graveyard is a trip. I wish I could post other pics of it. And then, you guys know that we're doing breeding and we're creating, we're disrupting millions of dollars and years worth of research. We're pissing people off because we're achieving symmetrical recovery, guys, using just water, and it's the shit. So follow my Instagram. Let's isolate some monokaryons. Let's maintain and keep the recessive traits from both the parents, and let's show the world that F-Zeros are better than any other filial generation you can ever get through stabilizing anything, because it's a fact. We've proved it. Okay? So, glad to be back, guys. I was MIA for a period of time for some serious drama that happened in my life. I know that, so here's the thing. If there's an order that you guys have made that you haven't gotten, specifically I'm talking to individual people, if you happen to listen to this part, I've already screamed this from the rooftops on other social media. I haven't on YouTube yet. I figure if you're watching this video all the way through, you probably like the way that I talk and how crazy I am. Because if you didn't, you probably wouldn't be able to stand the first 30 seconds. So you're probably going to listen to it to the end. And if I owe you something, please hit me up on Instagram. Ask me for the Discord too. And just let me know what it is I owe you. And I promise you guys, I will get it to you. Some crazy shit happened in my life. The last year of my life's just been crazy. There's been a few things that have happened that really slowed me down. And it's unfortunate because my life and the way things were going before that for a long time was just like I was on a roll. Nothing was interfering. Everything that was happening naturally seemed to always, how do I put it, happen at the perfect time and always put me in the perfect position to succeed. This last year, since last September, my whole world's it's like crashed and burned. And it's weird because it's really showed me who I can trust and who's real and who's not. And guys, I want you to know something sincerely from the bottom of my heart. I don't do this because I want to get rich. I'll tell you guys right now, I've made a lot of money and I make a lot of money doing this. Definitely well above average, okay? That's why I work. The reason why I give information and I am so passionate about this hobby is because I believe in it. And I believe that with the distribution of knowledge comes debate. With debate comes questions. With an open mind in debate, things evolve very quickly. If I can provide anything to help in the advancement of that evolution, particularly the funguses that we're working with, I believe that I am helping advance the evolution of humanity and a happier society, which means better life for everybody. I believe that what I'm doing And the field that I'm in is basically I'm farming consciousness. If I can speed up the evolution of consciousness farming, I'm doing something good. And it really gives meaning to my life on a personal level, but also I believe in it because I think that other people are searching for that same thing. And I just want all of you to know that I know for a fact you're sovereign beings in the universe, and that the universe is your birthright, and everything in the world that you think is real, that you've attached to, no matter what it is nothing but a piece to the prison that you've allowed yourself to be built around you, and that's shackled to you. And I think that I don't like calling it medicine, because I think that medicine, and we all have the shackles. I'm not judging anybody. It's just something that's part of living in the third dimension, right? I think that everybody has their issues, and the thing that we're doing here transcends all of that and teaches us gives us such higher meaning. And there's, the words that I'm searching for, I'll never find, because it's undefinable, the thing that I'm talking about. And it's impossible to explain a kaleidoscope to a blind man. That's the best way I can describe what it is I'm trying to say right now. But it is what it is. It's something that you can't prove, you can't hold it, you can't measure it, but you can experience it. And that's why I'm trying to provide that experience, because it's good for you and it will make you happy. And, fuck it. Some people will go to the emergency room because they thought that they could eat an eighth of TTBVI, and they're honestly should have did their research. They're responsible for their own life. Hopefully they learned something. Even if they don't think they did, I guarantee you that they did. It's not how it works. I believe that these things are good. If you have a psychic breakdown, that's on you. I'm super excited for people taking these more and more and learning about them, and traveling through space in the future more and more, and getting to meet new people, getting to talk to new people, and spread the information that I have and the love. And also, it's always good to receive it. Kind of went on a rant. I don't know why. I wasn't planning on that. I think that that's just how it goes when I feel like I'm talking to the community. That said, big dick gang, homies. Much love. Peace.